Yeah, you can see right there, just took the corner right off. It's supposed to look like this. But, yeah. So I got the E-maxx all done finally. I splurged some of my stimulus money on some steel drive shafts. Genuine Traxxas drive shafts. And I also got the steel drive shafts. Center drive shaft. All the new center drive line. But I put aluminum braces in here. The chassis braces are aluminum. It's got a Energy Integi, however you want to say it, front skid plate. I still like to run the RPM skid plates over top of the aluminum stuff because the plastic slides a little bit easier, in my opinion, and it does protect the aluminum. I had these before I had the aluminum stuff, so it's kind of nice to have. This does have the RPM conversion on the rear, so it doesn't have the pillow balls on the lower A-arm anymore. It's just got a pivot with a regular pin. So I got this new body for the E-maxx, the Baja Bug Buddy. This is also a $25 eBay battery. I tore up the American flag one pretty bad, and I'm gonna have stiffer mounts on this one. I was gonna 3D print some rear body mounts because the back of this is curved, and I'll have to have the peg tilted back just a little bit so it goes across the back of this the right angle. So I found a model for these body mount inserts on Thingiverse, and I'm going to put a curve in it on Fusion 360 and try and get that just right. I haven't printed those yet. Obviously right now I'm printing other stuff for people, and I was going to say earlier that if you look around, you never know who is into RC stuff. I found out a guy at work was into RC stuff too. He buys and sells a whole bunch of stuff. And I got the RPM front A-arms, which is why they're a little darker, because they're from a different year. These are the dark blue ones I got from him. I got these really awesome stock wheels and tires. I like the old TerraTread. And I got a box of miscellaneous stuff from him. And I think I forgot what else I got from him. But anyway, got a pretty good deal on stuff for 40 bucks from him. You never know who's got stuff. Oh, I got these wheels and tires too. That's right. So these are just regular Pro Line wheels. These are really popular when everybody was racing the T-maxxes and E-maxxes in their own class. Because I remember when that was such a thing, everybody had T-maxxes, and there were so many at the track, they would have their own class. Now it's all Truggies and Wolf Traxxas lineup now. I mean the slashes. But anyway, this is the old Pro Line masher, and these things really ballooned big time. And it's hard to believe. You'd think these would get really good traction, but in the yard on cement, asphalt, whatever, they spin so bad with this much power that it's just constantly spinning, and you wouldn't think these would be that much more of an upgrade because they're practically the same size, but they're so much softer and they balloon, so whenever you're pulling a wheelie, sometimes they're still touching the ground if they're tall enough. And the only thing I've found is they're kind of hard to keep glued in. But I got some original T-maxx wheels. These are super hard to find now, at least for me, and I found a whole set of these on eBay for 4 bucks. I think altogether I have $13 in them, and one of them has a little scuff on it, but you can put these masher tires on here, or it's a very typical size. So I'm not as big of a fan as the bigger wheels. These are smaller. Man, they look so much better. Call me old school. That's one of those things that it's hard to find, and it's like, if you do find them, they're pretty cheap anyway. So I've got our E-maxx here. I like the old RCs because half the reason probably is because when these came out, I couldn't afford them, and now I can. And yeah, the X-maxx is cool and the Max is cool, but I have just as much fun finding a good deal on these and then trying to find the parts for them if some of the vintage parts are discontinued or and whatnot. I got this for a pretty good deal. I got this from a guy about an hour away. It was 175 bucks for this, and I also got this micro T here, and these are going for 100 bucks on eBay all day, and he wanted 200 for the pair, offered him 175, and we got a pretty good deal. I mean, 150 bucks for this and $25 for this is a massive deal. And yeah, the batteries were bad for this, but who cares? I did find that the LiPo batteries are discontinued for this, and I'm using an E-flite battery now. I'm doing a video on that also. So when I got this, it has the Traxxas speed control factory that had 2 outputs that ran 2 brushed motors, and he was running 2 7-cells in this, and they weren't in series or anything. They just had 2 plugs, 1 for each battery. Well, it didn't work. It would try and go. I tried resetting it. The lights would come on. I went through the procedure of resetting it a bunch of times. Would not work. I think what happened is this sat in a shed long enough that it dry rotted a lot of places, because one side the tires were all dry rotted and cracked, and the other side they weren't. Like, it sat on the corner of a shed, the sunlight shining down on it, and which makes a lot of plastic parts more brittle too. I'll get to that in a second. And so I basically just pulled it off, and I've already done a review on my 8th scale Ghoul RC brushless motor and speed control. It's 120 amps. It's up to 4S, and I know 6S and 8S are out there, but man, with an E-maxx and 4S, this thing is just has almost too much power. It flips over so easy. You can really tell by my body how messed up this is. This was a pretty good shape body when I got it, but this thing wheelies so bad. Of course, now I've broken so much stuff that it's all pretty much new, but that's half the fun. Every time you get to replace something, you get to upgrade it or change it to see how it reacts to the way you drive, and that's half the fun too. You can go buy a brand new one and pull all the stuff off, but I see so many people do that just like with vehicles. They buy a brand new one, take it home, replace all the stuff on it, and don't even break the stock stuff. If you're going to replace everything anyway, you might as well buy an old one. Cheaper on, I know eBay is probably the top dollar for anything, but sometimes that's the only place you can find RC stuff, and at least specific RC stuff. And a lot of times I'll hover on eBay to find a good deal, and when it comes up, you know, of course I'll get it, and then you have the same search finding the pieces that you can't get anymore. Micro T stuff's really a good example of that. Mini T stuff's also the same way. I know they have the Mini T 2.0 out now, and I've been wanting to get one of those, but they're on back order. That's how popular they are. So you can see how this is an XL version, because the body lines go right to the edge of the bumpers, and the only bodies I've found on eBay so far, I know I can buy a Proline body, but they're much more expensive, probably more durable though. Wrong body. This is the one I've been running a lot, and you can see how much shorter it is. If this was straight, the way it's supposed to be, big gap back here, and then you got a big gap up here. And that's the difference between that 3906 and 3905 model. If you get one of these, you can tell on the frame that there's not holes in here where the battery tray is. And this one also curves in on the sides. It's not flat like the original E-maxx was. And yeah. I've also printed several different kinds of battery straps, which I mean is fun. And these flat ones here, I did with red PLA, pretty flexible. They've held up really well. And they flex just enough to keep the battery in there, no problem. And I also printed these white ones, and these don't hold up as well, but it's nice because they keep the battery centered and you don't have to have any foam in there. I also found these on Thingiverse. But the worst thing is, even if you do 100% infill, the the end on this will break off real easy. I'll flip this thing over and the corner snaps right off, and the battery will fly out, and you have to solder stuff together again. That sucks. So.
You can see flipped over that I added, well, when you get these servos, they come with aluminum horns, and the factory steering on this has a horn with 2 holes in it for 2 rods, and I just drilled and tapped this one. And it's an M3 by 0.5. If you want to drill and tap one of these and use an aluminum one, it just barely clears right here, but it does clear. If you use a ball head screw, it just barely touches.